Augusta man who's facing federal charges on what officials described as a murder-for-hire plot. The FBI began investigating 41-year-old Hyancook Korziak after he expressed interest in getting paid to kill someone. Agents introduced Korziak to an undercover agent posing as a member of a criminal organization that engaged in different crimes, including murder. Korziak and the agent met in New York City in January and began plotting to kill a made-up victim, they say, for $50,000. FBI agents arrested Korziak at a New York hotel on Wednesday.
It's an investigator's dream because when somebody does this kind of crime, they leave a long evidence that make it easy for the investigators to follow. There's phone calls, there's emails, there's money moving around, there's photographs of the people on scene. So it sounds intriguing.
Court documents show that Korziak planned to use a police uniform to get away more easily after the planned crime. If convicted, he could earn up to 15 years in prison.